It's Thursday, February 13th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Junior high schools in this province might soon be offering fewer classes in subjects like French and music. Government says it's all about giving them more choice, but what are the potential costs of that move? And how do we gauge the value of a subject like French or music or some of the other ones? Right out of the gate, thank you to Jamie Fitzpatrick for filling in for me for a couple of days. As you can hear, my voice is doing far better than if you caught Monday's show, so thanks, Jamie. Here we go. What's the motivation for a possible change to junior high curriculum? Well, Education Minister Krista Howell addressed that question earlier this week. Take a listen.
The whole premise of changing the intermediate programming is to give students more choice, and so they can have a say in what it is that they're studying and pick courses that are of interest to them. And we do have significant evidence that the grades 7 to 9 grades is where we lose a lot of student engagement, and we find that they lose interest, and sometimes it's challenging to motivate them to come to school and to stay interested. So by including the options for students in grades 7 to 9. We're hoping that it'll make it more interesting, make them more motivated and more engaged.
Education Minister Krista Howell there. The president of the NLTA has weighed in on this issue. Here is what Trent Langdon had to say this week.
As teachers, we want to give them a fulsome experience. Sometimes it's about opening doors and creating opportunities that otherwise they wouldn't have sought out for themselves. So anytime you allow a young person the opportunity to, I guess, opt out or to take a certain path at a young age, are you ultimately limiting opportunities down the road? And that's the big question here.
All right, so that's Trent Langdon there. For context, right, recent data highlights, and this is from the Education Accord, recent data highlights challenges in grades 7 to 9. 1 in 5 students is frequently absent without an excuse. Less than 20% of students feel engaged at school. Only 40% of students feel school is interesting, important, or useful. In recent standardized tests, students scored below the Canadian average in math and reading. The proposed changes aim to increase student engagement, address attendance concerns, improve educational outcomes, and make school more meaningful. And that is directly from, the provincial government. Okay, folks, the lines are open, as I said in the beginning of the show, so it's a full call-in today. What are the potential costs, right? If schools are going to be offering fewer, junior high schools, offering fewer classes in subjects like French and music, what are the potential costs of that move? And how do we gauge the value of subjects like French, music, social studies? Give us a call, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. You can text us, 709-327-8206. Emails, thesignal@cbc.ca. Without further ado, I've got 2 guests waiting patiently for me to stop talking here in the studio. Corona Brophy, former music teacher, Gonzaga High and Memorial University, director of the Celtic Fiddlers. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Good, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. And Walter Parsons, president of Canadian Parents for French, Newfoundland and Labrador, an Anglophone organization advocating for access to French education. And he currently has, is it 1 child in school?
I have 1 in school, 1 in university.
1 in university. All right. Thanks for coming in as well.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
You both listened to the clips there, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think about those clips, first of all, for what was said either by the minister or Trent Langdon?
Well, I just feel that they're very vague, and they're not giving enough information to the public, including the parents and the students. I don't know where they got their stats with the absenteeism and the interest and all that. But I truly feel as a music educator that every student and the arts and French should be given the opportunity to continue their education in these subjects right through high school, to the end of high school. And from my experience, the grounding of these kids in music and arts is more prominent. By doing these subjects, they develop a lot more confidence and all around a student. If they do this, it's going to destroy And that's a good word because it will destroy the music programs. So after grade 6, the kids are going to float around and figure what they want to do. I feel it's too young for them to do this. And you take somebody like a teacher that is has 4 schools right now as an itinerant teacher, band teacher. After grade 6, they go to junior high where they can choose. And a lot of them may not choose band. They'll choose what their friends want or their parents want. And I still feel that they're too young to do that at this point. Anyway, my point is that the band programs are going to suffer and the choral music will suffer. And then the high school. So it's going to be a trickle effect. We have some outstanding music programs in this country and this province. Look at Robert Colburn, up now for a Juno. Holy Heart in itself, other schools that are, really working hard to keep their music programs going. Like I remember at Gonzaga at the end of the school year when we'd have awards day, I would say 90% of the awards went to kids that were involved with music and French and social studies and all that. They were the top students in the school, sports, So they really have to think about what they're doing. They just can't just jump in there and dictate to these teachers. You're going to lose them. You're going to lose these teachers, or they're going to be teaching subjects that they're not comfortable with. So, you can't spread them out anymore. So I'll let Walter have his say.
Go ahead, Walter.
Yeah, it's. I think it's commendable what the department is trying to do and give more choice to students. And some of the statistics do speak for themselves. And we do need to make school more engaging for junior high. And Canadian Parents for French is not opposed to that, not opposed to more choice. But of course, as you mentioned, it's our mandate to increase access to French language learning across the country and our branch across Newfoundland and Labrador. So we're really concerned mostly now with rural Newfoundland and Labrador. And when we say there will be choice, but the way the program is presented, and I know there's an opportunity to provide feedback on that, but the way it's currently presented, students will essentially get their French credits in grade 7, and then grade 8 and 9, it becomes completely optional. And our worry is that in rural parts of the province, there simply won't be an allocation of teachers then to those grade 8s and grade 9s who even want to choose French. So what the proposal includes is really a 2/3 reduction in the required amount of French, core French, in those schools. And 3/4 of the schools in this province don't have French immersion. And so core French is the way to deliver French programming. And we believe that there shouldn't be a divide, inside the overpass versus outside the overpass. We think kids across this province, off the Avalon should have every opportunity to become bilingual, as the same as kids will here in St. John's.
So what do kids get from core French? Because core French typically does not make you bilingual. I think the stat I heard on the morning show was for bilingual in this province is 5% or something. What do kids get from core French?
Core French obviously is not producing the same results as French immersion, and French immersion is a very popular program here in St. John's and in Corner Brook and some of the other centers across the province. But core French does provide a basis upon which to build a bilingualism going forward. So, for example, if 3/4 of the schools in this province don't offer immersion, there are kids across this province who can opt for core French and get themselves a base through junior high today, which is mandatory through grade 9. And then those kids who want to choose it in grade 10 continue to build on that in high school and can really expand from there. So we know that through Canadian Parents for French, we know of many teachers, for example, in this province who teach French, who are fully bilingual, people who work in national organizations, people involved in politics at the federal level who became bilingual building on a base of core French. Mm-hmm. So yes, core French by itself, it's not going to make you fluently bilingual, but without core French or with core French ending at grade 7, our concern is that having grade 8 and grade 9 no French, that almost takes away the option to even get back into it at the high school level.
That's right.
So, Obviously, it also, I think Core French needs to have some improvements made to it, and I'll commend the department in that they are doing work in improving Core French today. So maybe the Core French of the future is not necessarily the Core French that you know, that you maybe experienced when you were growing up. But I think that's a great way to do it, is to improve upon the Core French program that we have, because it's so important for the rural students in this province.
Yeah, for language learning, and it's been a long time since I've been in a school, but with the internet, there's a lot. If you're in a class with a teacher, there's a lot more you can be exposed to, as opposed to just playing the tape with "say la na na" that we loved growing up. We got look at the call sheet. We got some folks calling in, and then I'll get back to the guests. Annette's on the line from Mount Pearl. Hello.
Good afternoon. I'm calling in now. I'm a retired music teacher, and I agree with everything that has been said by Corona and probably much more. I'd like to say that this plan is the pits.
Why?
And I'm being mannerly when I say the pits.
I appreciate the manners, but but dig in further, Annette. Tell us.
Because music can give young children, young people, that age group, it can bring out confidence in what they do. It can help children with problems. I've worked with that myself. And the results of such a program is going to have a drastic effect on our music here, which is part and parcel of Newfoundland. We had choirs go all over the world and come back with smiles on their faces. Yes. But that's not going to happen, because if they're allowed to do what they're saying they will be able to do in junior high, there's not too many are going to say when they get to high school, oh, I'm going back now to be in band. Why? Because they would have forgotten anything that they didn't know.
Yeah.
So this is it. It's going to affect the music school, the Kiwanis Festival. Forget that. That'll never happen. Especially, it won't, because there'll be nobody taking part in it. The youth choir, the youth orchestra that is on the go now, the different choirs, and not everybody can afford to send their child to a private teacher in like what we have, the studios that are around town. It's an injustice towards children. When did anybody ever think of hearing about Newfoundland schools doing this to music? Dear God, I was at the funeral this morning for Corey and Trina.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And we sang the Cliffs of Labrador coming out of the church. And you know something? It nearly brought tears to my eyes, because I said to myself, the children coming up are not going to be a part of any of this. So, for God's sake, I hope that people start to think a bit differently.
Annette,
thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your call. I can hear the passion there, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, passion is not the word. It's more than passion.
No,
it's
and maybe a dose of anger, too, with the passion.
Oh, frustration.
Yeah.
Take care.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Annette. Corona, what are your thoughts on what
Well, first of all, hi, Annette. Annette taught me in grade 2.
Really?
Yes, at Our Lady of Mercy. And she's so right. We had such wonderful programs in our schools. And if you look at like these awards that are being given out, like the Symphony, the Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra, Deantha Edwards, I mean, you ask them where they got their music education, and a lot of them got it through their schools. And, when I was a student at Mercy, I, took my cello and violin, piano lessons and voice lessons all through right up to my high school days. And we had an orchestra at both schools, And then when I started teaching, and this is a problem with some of the, the program now, is that teachers have to give up their lunch times, which I did, after school. Weekends, if we were doing a musical, we were at our school for 3 months, every weekend, 3 months. And that was all unpaid. We did it, was all volunteer, but we wanted to do it with the children. It was a team effort. And you lose that whole basis, it'll be gone. It's going to ruin, we're going backwards. Sorry, that's my only word.
Let me, I'll go through a couple more calls, and then I'll go back here into studio again. We've got Professor Dylan Mannix on the line. Teaches at Memorial, up along for a little trip. I appreciate you calling in. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. So, we had you in studio a few weeks ago, and we talked about the
I
benefits of
know.
music, and yet here we are again talking about the benefits of music in a kind of a different, with a whole different lens around it. Tell us your thoughts on the announcement from the provincial government about potentially for junior high students being able to pick and choose for some of these courses, including music.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but it's funny enough that the past week and a bit, on Sunday, I led a junior high honor band in Prince Edward Island of 103. And now I'm at Ontario's Provincial Band Festival working with thousands of kids this week. And to see the love, to see the passion, to see the smiles that these junior high programs give, it's almost like I don't even know how to say it. It gives me hope for what can be, and then being slapped with these changes has been like the complete flip side and something I didn't see coming. But these changes give the illusion of option. What they do is put our choice at the forefront and make music almost against French, almost against social studies, almost against the other fine arts, because now we have to make these choices when we live in an ecosystem that everything supports each other and that all of these subject areas are equally as important as English, as math. And I don't see how giving the option of choice in these things, how does that encourage people to go to school to do English and math? You just took away the things that gives them joy. It's like, this is why we go to school. This is why kids are in school, because music has the opportunity to change lives, to change minds, to make people more critical thinkers, to do these things. And I'm speaking of music because that's what I do. But these are the things that keep people in schools. These are the things that improve these scores. The research shows. So what I want to know is, where is their research? Because people can say they have research, but I have not seen it yet. They talk about data. I have not seen the data. It's not there. But there is numerous academic articles to prove that music improves English, to prove that music and other things in the arts and thinking beyond what is right and wrong, those improve who we are as people and marks and all that stuff. And guess what? Sorry, I'm on a big rant now.
Hey, it's a day of rants, and Corona's with you there too. So don't you worry. I know. Yeah.
But the other thing is that's not even an argument for the arts, for the humanities. What is the argument is that these things are important because they are important. Music, and I once again speak for music because that's what I do. Music is what helps us be human. It's what helps us, as I said on your show a couple of weeks ago, what's going on in our head, what's going on in our heart, that is able to come out of an instrument to express. We're able to do that in fine arts as well, and all these things. We have the opportunity in a broken world to bring people together. If you think about a band, that junior high band that I had on the weekend, 103 different opinions, all brought together to think about the greater good and what can be and to say something. 103 different opinions brought in to harmony. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but that's what it is. So these changes may seem like an option to make choice, but it's not choice. This idea of the individual and going to the individual is something that is in choice of community. It's in choice of supporting each other. It's in choice of just basic humanity and being able to bring people together. That's what we should be doing whenever now we are making ourselves more individual through this idea of choice. So I just ask all of you who are listening to ask more questions. Where is the data? Where is all of this? And just do not say, oh, this is sad. I mean, yes, it's very sad, but move past sad very quickly and be passionate, be loud, and fight for what is. Okay, I'm done now. Thank you so much.
Dylan, thank you so much for coming back on the show and for your points, and safe journey home.
Thank you.
Dylan Maddox there teaches at Memorial University in the Department of Music. And folks, Dylan was mentioning that show. Friday, January the 10th. The name of that show was The Love of Music. All of our shows are on the CBC Listen app, and we also put the show up on YouTube every day. So if you want a very interesting, engaging discussion about music around this topic, this is the a nice companion piece for today's discussion. I'm going to go back to my guests here in studio. Coroner, for your thoughts. I know you've been agreeing with some of the points.
Oh yes, 100%. I mean, it actually brought tears to my eyes. I was like,
was it allergies or
no? And you can hear the passion in his voice as well. But I remember I had a band student at Brother Rice High School who had a photographic memory.
Yeah.
And he would love to come in the music room because he didn't have to write stuff down. It was pen and pencil, none of that, right? But he would memorize his music. He could play from memory. He used to keep his eyes on me the whole time he played his clarinet. And that room for him was a paradise. And I've spoken to other teachers, even this morning, a friend of mine who teaches in the elementary school, and she said the exceptionality children in the schools blossom in the music room. They come out, they sing, they have talents that are hidden. And in the music room, they're able to express themselves. And I think that opportunity will be shut down for them. If you take a child that has some kind of exceptionality, like ADHD, Asperger's, I don't think they're able to choose in grade 7 what they want. I think for grade 7s, they're going to go with their peers a lot, or what their parents want. And I think that's a big step, again, backwards. I think we have to talk to the students, talk to the band students. Like, do people that have made these decisions, have they been in a music setting to see what goes on with teachers across the province? Like, you're going to destroy this. I keep using that word, but it is. You're going to destroy education. It's like taking the fish out of the harbors. Like you're taking the goodness out of our children.
Walter, what are your thoughts? I mean, I know you're on the French side of things, being the president of the Canadian Parents for French NL. But it's music. It's a French conversation. Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, the caller was right. The research is there, not only about music, but also about French and its impact on students' overall learning. The learning a second language in school is shown to have positive impacts on, the maths and the sciences and the other subjects, as I know that music is as well. So, as much as we feel strongly that, learning French is an important part of, being Canadian and being able to fully participate in, this country in a national level, or at least having the opportunity to learn French, especially in rural areas, it's the impact on that whole learning that we think about as well. And, taking away some of those humanities courses can really have a negative impact on the rest. And I know, folks will say, well, no, there'll still be a choice to take it. We're not taking it away. But we really have to look at the reality on the ground of some of these very small schools. If you have a junior high cohort of 12 kids, let's say, and there's a technology course and a music course and a French course offered, and let's say 6 of the 12 want to take the tech course and 3 want to take music and 3 want to take French. Is the department going to allocate a teacher to come in and teach those 3 kids music? A teacher for the 3?
When will decisions have to be made at certain points, right?
Yes.
Or
We
will
know
they
it's
just be made?
absolutely. We have limited resources, of course, as a province. We can't have a teacher for every 3 kids. So what happens to the 3 kids who are passionate about French? The 3 kids who are passionate about music? As I said, in St. John's, there's probably enough of a scale. But this is not necessarily a St. John's issue. This is a rural Newfoundland and Labrador issue. And I think, if we had the option even to have online schooling options for kids in junior high, which we don't. CDLI is great. It's a fantastic system for rural Newfoundland and Labrador. That's the Center for Distance Learning and Innovation. That works for high school. That's set up for high school. So these, junior high kids don't have that option. So we, as much as we're saying this can bring choice, we just don't feel that the choice to take French in the grade 8 and grade 9 will actually be there in these smaller schools.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the phones. We've got Nick Godso on the line, Director of Programs and Education, Music Counts. Hi, Nick. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming back on the show. You've been a guest before talking about music and the benefit of it. I'm just wondering your thoughts on the news out of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, any news that talks about, walking back on music education as opposed to doubling down on it is a concern, especially right now. We know that music help with things like student absenteeism, student engagement, student interest. We know music helps with improving math and literacy. The research is there. Like Dylan said, the data is there. We know music is a vehicle to help with all of these things. So I think that just needs to be recognized in this conversation. Music is something that we should be really doubling down on right now instead of walking back.
So I'm just on the website. It's Professional Learning Newfoundland and Labrador K to 12, right? It's got the Newfoundland and Labrador logo on it with the pitcher plants. It's the stats I read at the start of the show, and just to repeat them, right? It says highlights for grades 7 to 9. 1 in 5 students is frequently absent without an excuse. 20% of students feel less than 20% of students feel engaged at school. Only 40% of students feel school is interesting, important, or useful. And it also says how for the Canadian average, Newfoundland and Labrador is below the Canadian average in math and reading. And then it says, the proposed changes aim to increase student engagement, address attendance concerns, improve educational outcomes, and make school more meaningful. But when I read that line, that really does not connect to everything, and for my guests as well, for what folks are saying about the benefits for French and English, arts, and other subjects. What are your thoughts on that line? The proposed changes aim to increase student engagement, address attendance concerns, improve educational outcomes, and make school more meaningful if in junior high there's a choice for these courses as opposed to all students doing them.
I mean, like I said, it seems like reading that, I would assume that we would look at music education as, a powerful vehicle to address these issues. I know you can talk to any music teacher in Canada, any music teacher in Newfoundland, and they can give you a list of kids that the reason they get out of bed every morning and come to school is because of music education and music class, right? So, I'm not sure where those dots are being connected in terms of, music education and what the government is listing there. And I also recognize, a lot of concerns around, if students are not taking music in middle school, what that means for the music ecosystem in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. You know what I mean? Less kids taking music in middle school, less kids taking music in high school, less kids going on to post-secondary. I think it would be pretty disruptive to that pipeline and that ecosystem. And I think it's just it's unfortunate, particularly in the context of just last year, I believe, was, the year of the arts in Newfoundland. I know music and culture is so quintessential to Newfoundland pride and identity, and it's unfortunate to see proposals like these that might challenge that in a way that it never has before.
Nick Godso, thank you so much for your time, as always, for coming back on this show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers. Nick Godso there, Director of Programs and Education with Music Counts. You are listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. Today, we're talking about the fact that junior high schools in this province might soon be offering fewer classes in subjects like French and music. The government says it's all about giving them more choice. But what are the potential costs of that move, and how do we gauge the value of subjects like French, music, art? If you want to give us a call and join this discussion, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Emails thesignal@cbc.ca. I have 2 guests with me in studio. Corona Brophy, former music teacher at Gonzaga High and Memorial University, also director of the Celtic Fiddlers. Walter Parsons, president, Canadian Parents for French NL, an Anglophone organization advocating for access to French education. Walter, so French, Canada, two official languages, right? French and English. This is seems a simple question. What else do you get from learning a language? I've got some experience with this. So I went to French immersion, left immersion in grade 7 because we moved from Mount Pearl to CBS, where I went to Holy Spirit High School. One of my great teachers, Mr. Bill Brophy, was there. I think you know him, Corona.
Oh, yeah, I've met him.
Finished in core French.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that experience with language, right? Also in the Navy, in the reserves. Because of French, I did one of my full navigation courses in French. Didn't pick up Japanese when I was there, but anyways, point being, I've got a certain understanding around the benefits, pros and cons, and this is not for me weighing in on the thoughts around the policy here. I'm just talking lived experience for a second, but just wondering your thoughts on what, even for core French, if you don't become bilingual, right, if you just get the taste of the language, you continue to get it, what that can give.
Absolutely. It's as we talked about, core French provides an excellent, springboard to build upon later in life, and certainly exposes students to what else is out there. I mean, it's a big world out there. If you're living in certain parts of rural Newfoundland and Labrador, you may not hear other languages beyond English very often. But, as those students transition into adulthood and into the workplace, there are opportunities that being able to speak a second language will open up for them. And it even goes beyond French. There's significant research that shows that learning a second language really drops the barrier to learning additional languages. So once, you gain a certain level of comfort with French, if you are interested in learning Spanish or Japanese or other languages, that barrier is really taken down. And what that does then is opens up an entire new worlds for those students, a new way of seeing the world, opportunities for travel, opportunities for, building bridges with other cultures and other parts of Canada. We're living in a world right now where, maybe our, north-south relationships are changing and not necessarily in a positive way. Canada probably has to rely on each other more than we do on, the U.S. or other countries. And we're bordering on Quebec, and building those relationships with our neighboring province and being able to speak that language is something that every student in Newfoundland and Labrador should have, not just those that live in the major centers.
I'll say, you go to Montreal, if you're ordering, I don't know, a coffee or something else that comes in a glass, and you order it in French and they respond to you in French, you've achieved something in life, as opposed to responding to you in English. Let's go back to the phones. We've got Kelly Jane Bruton on the line. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you for asking.
So, a long time, you've taught, you're an artist and art educator for 30 plus years. You've taught in different parts of the world. What are your thoughts around this announcement for what may or may not happen?
Well, I first of all, I've been listening to the other callers that have been and the guests, and I just have to say that it just, from a broad strokes, it just seems to be a very reactionary type of decision to make such big decisions when we know, as previous caller to me just said about music, I could say the same thing about visual art, that there are lots of students that get their first introduction to being able to express themselves in an alternate way through visual art. I mean, there are numerous examples, and I think all we have to do is look back to COVID and the pandemic, and we realize that from an inner view, from our inner selves, that having things to do, having things to make, listening to music, all these things were the things that we create for ourselves to increase our well-being, to improve our mental health. And then when I see that these subjects are also kind of being taken away from the mainstream education, I just ask myself, obviously we're not paying attention to the research. There must be some other reason for deciding to kind of remove these types of courses from the the core curriculum, because I've been an art educator long enough to know that we've been fighting for years just to keep art in the school, and then to see it from programs like Arts NL, who have like Art Smarts that has been very successful in the province and has run for a really long time, that already is showing us the intrinsic value of the visual arts and all arts in child development and also just in for well-being. So I have to ask myself, for all these subjects, why are we diluting these subjects? Why, when all the research shows us the opposite direction? So to me, I wonder, from the future for education in the province, from the Education Accord, is this how we're going to come up with a plan, or are we going to just try to get rid of things that are perhaps the issue here is curriculum? Some of these subjects are humanities, and they probably require a fair bit of investment to bring the curriculum to the level that makes it interesting for the student. And it's so people see themselves in the curriculum, and the curriculum is responding to what they need from it. I don't understand the underlying reason for doing it. I think it's a step back, and it's very disappointing. I think that the children of the province deserve a lot better, and I've certainly seen over the years. One of the most beautiful examples I've had the privilege of being part of was working at the Murphy Center years ago and having a community arts project. And that project was what I would call in the informal education sector. But basically it was a pre-employment program. And we were using art to help people who, were having a hard time kind of getting their act together, just learn how to come into work on time and make a plan for themselves and solve problems. And art has all that capacity. We all know that. And music was a very big part of their world, too. A lot of them were musicians as well. And just those kind of activities where people can learn about who they are and their place in the world and what talents they have to give. All those things are found in early K-12 system for a lot of people. And I wish we were nurturing them and using music and art and French and other languages to teach a curriculum that would engage students that wouldn't feel like it was meaningless.
Yeah, so you're saying, work more for engagement as opposed to making the choice so fewer people end up taking it. Kelly Jane, I got to let you go because we've got a growing call-in list, but your points, Thank you so much for these points.
Thank you. No worries.
Coming on the show. Kelly Jane Bruton there, just making some extra points, right? There's a bit of a chorus of voices for folks wondering, why, asking questions around it. Yep. Kelly Jane did mention Murphy Center too, and it made me think about literacy rates for the province. Newfoundland and Labrador has one of the lowest adult literacy rates in Canada, according to the Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, which notes 60% of adults have inadequate literacy skills in this province. Before I go back to my guests again, I'm going to work through a couple of calls. We've got Sheila on the line from St. John's. How you doing?
Oh, hi. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing? Thoughts for today's topic?
Very, very interesting topic. As a retired educator, teacher for 30 years, I wanted to weigh in. I felt it was important to weigh in. I agree fully with what Kelly has just said, and she couldn't have said it better, so I won't belabor the points. But as a teacher and administrator, what I have found about the subjects of music, art, phys ed, these are the things that often keep kids in school, and they're so important to their all-round development. Social studies is crucial for citizenship, I really, really think it's a mistake to water down these subjects. As far as math goes, math is important, absolutely. I never liked the new math. I thought that was over the top. And now kids are so dependent on computers that they can hardly add, give you change from $1 if what they bought cost 50 cents. So math is important, yes, but the subject of music for their development, their mental well-being, art, phys ed, all those things are life skills. And we're going so much to computers and machines and artificial intelligence and Google these days that life skills are what are desperately needed. Not more so than science and math, but to give them up would be a big mistake.
Sheila.
So that's, I agree with Kelly and a lot of the other callers who've been calling in, and that's really all I want to say.
No, thank you so much for it. It's great to have you call in, and great to hear from another retired teacher.
Well, with regard to French, that's all I had to say. I was going to say with regard
Go
to
for
French.
it. Yes.
I mean, we're right next to France. What is it? 45 minutes away from France, and our students can go down there in the summer. One of my kids went down in the summer and lived with a French family, and we had a student exchange. They came back and lived with us, and of course we've got Quebec as part of Canada, and I just think that to deny or not to require someone the basic fundamentals of French denies that person an opportunity in the future if they ever want to go and get a job in Canada where those two languages are required, French and English. They're at a disadvantage. So I think we're shortchanging ourselves, our students, when we cut back on those important subject areas.
Thanks again, Sheila. Appreciate it.
Welcome. You're welcome. Bye.
All right. So that's we've had a couple of retired teachers call in today. Retired teachers know what's what. They're listening to the signal as well, which I appreciate, folks. Before one more guest, and then we've got a few more calls. So let me just go to Chris Harnett on the line, and then I'll go back to the studio. Chris, how you doing? Thanks for coming on the show.
I'm doing well, Adam. How you doing?
Good. I got in touch with you. So here's what happens whenever news breaks. Sometimes people put up Facebook posts. And, and those go around. So I saw one of Chris's.
Oh, perfect. He's a perfect
So here we
example.
go.
Yeah.
Chris, it starts with, I left teaching about 2 years ago now. I loved teaching, but it didn't make sense to me as a career anymore. Can you fill in the gaps after that on your post?
Yeah, sure. I taught about 15 years, starting in 2006. And it was beautiful and wonderful. And then COVID hit. And I saw a lot of people around me who were also substituting, and they were suddenly out of work. At the time, I was lucky enough to be in a replacement, so I still had income through all that. But it sort of changed my perspective, and I wanted to have a job that was a little more stable. And I saw music positions disappearing on the Avalon in the ads that would come out in August. There were fewer positions available. The ones that would be advertised were smaller and smaller, 25%, 15%, and mostly in the elementary level. And so when I see this new curriculum come out and the requirements for music are split with art for one module in 3 years, I just see this trend of music positions getting smaller and less frequent and disappearing from schools. I mean, if teachers are only in schools for one 13-week block in 3 years for a child, then when can they develop all the other programming that goes around this? And I notice, listening to Dylan a few minutes ago, he talked about not being sad and being angry because I've been feeling sad about this. But he's right, because it's not fair to people to be taking away all these educational experiences. And if schools don't need to have a full-time music teacher anymore. They're going to lose all these other things that come with having those arts people in the building. I also speak music, that's what I know, but it applies to all the arts. I'd love to see dance programs coming into school. I'd love to see bigger visual arts programs coming into school.
Yeah, and in a time, Chris, when there's an education accord happening, meaning an ongoing conversation about the future of education and what it should be in this province, it feels like, I mean, your points and the points being made today, these are things that should be part of the act. And I know they are part, and I know that the province, even for the proposed changes, is asking for input. So just, putting that out there as well. But these are really important points to put out there for folks to understand the value of education and I think for perspective on what should or should not be included.
Yeah.
I think one thing they might be able to help with this is describing how these optional courses are going to exist. Because there's a long history of ideas coming out and being implemented in schools without having resources behind them. That's happened over and over and over again. I don't see anywhere, is there still a commitment to have a certain percentage of a music teacher in a school or an art teacher in a school? So where are these optional courses coming from? Who's teaching them? And I think what is the purpose behind the change, and how does that relate to getting students back into school and interested in school?
Great questions. Chris, thanks so much for taking time out of your day. And, the one thing I'm hearing from everyone, it's a whole lot of passion and more around music and the arts. And, I can obviously hear it from you too.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, bud. Chris Harnett there. Corona,
yes, I would like to just say thanks to Chris, because I've worked with Chris myself, and he would sub for me at Brother Rice in Gonzaga, a wonderful teacher. We lost a wonderful teacher. He was 15 years subbing, and like you said, you apply for a job and it's 0.25%, and you're not, so what do? You spread this teacher out into 4 schools or whatever, and so they lose interest to go somewhere else. I know a few other teachers that went through MUN who decided to stop teaching music because it was too hard, too difficult. The kids changed. After COVID, the kids changed, and everything changed. The kids are more dependent on their screens and their phones, sadly. And so to get them off that, thankfully that they have this rule now, but to get them more back into a routine, go back to a routine, get the parents, have a community meeting with your parent body and your school body and just say, look, we need your help to get your kids back in. You can tell me that absenteeism and disinterest is caused by music and art. You can't convince me of that. It's come from other extraneous sources. And COVID, and I know everyone blames everything on COVID. It's time to get over that and time to get back to a solid, structured education. I said earlier, before we even started, I'd like to see a Monday to Friday like we had it when I was at school. I know it was probably more of a passive education, but we had phys ed twice a week, we had music twice a week, we had art, we had health, we had Latin, of all things, we had French, we had everything. Everything was in that week, and we loved it. And we had full attendance. But by the time high school came, and you noticed students, your friends disappeared. They just dropped out because they just couldn't get it. The high school was harder, but I think the whole system needs to be thought about a bit more carefully before they do this. Walter?
Yeah, I think Chris asked a great question when he asked, will teachers continue to be allocated in those same numbers to teach these types of subjects? And, we have to work with the resources that we have. So, if there are courses that are not being selected by a large number of kids for one reason or another, these are 12-year-olds making decisions. They're not thinking about necessarily for sure where their career is heading, what opportunities might open or might close, but based on those decisions, teacher allocations will likely be made based on that. And I have firsthand experience I have a son who's a music major at Memorial, and music has been a huge part of his life. And he did junior high in Churchill Falls, a really small school, and music was offered and mandatory, and really built camaraderie amongst the students. And, his music teacher inspired him there. And now that's his career. But if you take away these options for French and music and the like, and if we can, in the short term, save some teaching units, what are we doing for the long-term development of future teachers that can teach those things in the long term? If there are fewer teachers coming out of rural Newfoundland and Labrador with these subjects, then we're just going to create a vicious cycle of having fewer. I know we're struggling to get French teachers now. I think that will be worse if we reduce the required French by 2/3. That'll obviously not help solve that problem.
We've got 2 more callers I want to fit in, and only 5 minutes left to the show. 6 if I'm generous with my end time. Jane is on the line from St. John's. Hi, Jane Walsh. How you doing?
I'm fine. I'm very interested in the cutbacks that they're doing as a substitute for the last 8 years. I've had a life before then. I worked as a nurse, and I'm a veteran as well, so I've done a lot. But in the last 8 years, I've been from here to Bay Roberts substituting, and the kids that are engaged in the classrooms are not the ones not doing French. It's the ones they don't want to go to English or math. Yeah. They're thrilled to go to music class. They want to be in music. They want to do these things. Losing that option for not only their ability to express themselves is going to challenge them immensely. I notice we're talking a lot about French and music, but I mean, think about it. They're going to cut social studies, so we're not going to learn our history. We're not going to learn geography anymore. These in grades 7 to 9 is when they learn about how Canada was formed, how Newfoundland came to be. This is our history. It's not exactly a subject that parents sit down and talk to their child. Well, we came to Newfoundland 300 years ago and we were not a colony, but the rest of Canada. These are topics that are discussed and have conversations with in school. They engage the students. They learn about World War I and why there's an unknown soldier that we're paying $200, for security for down at the War Memorial. They're learning our history. They're not only learning, the music classes I've taught as a substitute are absolutely engaging to the students.
Jane,
the French classes I've taught, whether it's, and unfortunately they do not have enough French teachers as it is right now. They don't have enough French substitutes. So I've taught French immersion I've taught.
Jane, thank you for the points. I got to let you go short because I got one more caller and I only have 2 minutes left. So thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Jane Walsh there, working as a substitute teacher with some thoughts. Susan Kendall's on the line from St. John's. Hi, Susan. You got about 30 to 45 seconds for your quick thought on this?
Thank you so much for taking my call. It's Suzanne.
Oh, Suzanne. Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
No worry. Dad paid $12 for that name. I like back in the day. I had a teacher call me Susan. Anyway, I digress. Where do you begin? We have so much natural talent here, right? And we don't, not everyone can afford private music education. So, not to date myself, but, back in the days of the amazing Kiwanis Music Festival where everyone and their dog slept at the Arts and Culture Center in the middle of February because we always had a storm, and lots of winners. So I went to Mary Queen of Peace. We had Sister Clary, and
20 seconds.
French teacher was the music accompanist. We need these. Do we not have your previous caller, 12-year-olds making these decisions? Do we not have a responsibility? They don't know what they don't know. They need these basics. Do we not have a responsibility to have a certain level of French conversation in this bilingual country? Where do we go without these two very, very near and dear things? I think we'll be lost if we cut this program.
Well said, Suzanne. Thank you so much for that call. All right. The music's on. That means the show's pretty much done. But last thoughts from my guests. You got about 20 seconds each here. Walter Parsons.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear all the calls today. Look, we just want to see more French offerings, and we want to see better programming in rural Newfoundland and Labrador, not a reduction like this. You know, Core French provides a fantastic base, and we want to see it continue.
Yes, and also for the committee that has proposing this, is take time, maybe put a year hold on it, and just really think about the repercussions of this. But thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for coming in, folks. Enjoyed the chat, for all the calls and the emails. Much appreciated, everyone. Corona Brophy, Walter Parsons, thank you so much. Coming up tomorrow, we are heading to the library. Guess what? They're not just for books anymore. I know you all know that. You'll hear about why these spaces matter to communities. And seeing it's Valentine's Day, we're going to dish out some love to our local authors. Don't miss us live from the AC Hunter Library tomorrow.